There are infinite parallel realities with alternate versions of you existing right now. So how do you even find these pieces of you, these other versions? And most importantly, how do we integrate them into the now moment, into our physical? Because it's actually the process of ascension. We activate these other parallel versions of ourselves, and we can then download that content into our physical now moment. And this is literally the process of spiritual ascension, how we start moving through time-space into higher timelines of new earth, right? More balanced timelines and less chaotic. So the most important thing to realize is there's many different types of, let's say, parallel realities. We can think of past lives as being parallel realities. Now that's because your ego self has really 12 different incarnate selves existing throughout time and space in this 3D version of reality. So past lives, we can say, are literally parallel lives. But the parallel lives can be different things as well. When we start activating our future selves, which is really, we can say these are galactic versions of ourselves, this can also be a parallel reality. So I'm going to get into more in a second. But the thing to realize is that your chakras are not just energy centers. What a chakra really is a different manifestation of you existing in a different coordinate in time-space. So each chakra is actually a manifestation of a specific version of you or an archetype of you. Let's just say, for example, the root chakra. That would be your physical manifestation of your body. The sacral, which is our second chakra, that would be our lower emotional selves, which is also our instincts. So think about where do your emotions exist? Well, they don't exist in the physical. We don't see them, but we know they're there. That's because they're existing in a different plane of existence in the second dimension. So we also have the third dimensional solar plexus. Now this is our manifestation of our ego or individual lower mental self. So think about where your thoughts are. We know they exist somewhere, but they're invisible to the physical kind of reality that we experience as our 3D life. So that is what a typical 3D human is made up of, right? Our physical root, our sacral, which is our lower emotional self, and our lower mental realm. So the process of ascension and Kundalini activation is really activating higher chakras where you have alternate versions of you. So what will happen is, okay, first of all, this is why when we first wake up, we go through a dark night of the soul. This happens many times, but the reason why, when your heart chakra starts opening up or activating. Now, we know this as, it can be either heartbreak or something positive, but something happens to start having energy moving beyond just this lower 3 centers. And what happens is we start activating the astral version of ourselves. Now, getting beyond the point of this video, there's many problems with the astral plane because it was hijacked a long time ago. And really it's a dumping ground for unprocessed, unconscious energy. So it can be a very dark place with a lot of soul fractals of really us, right? The collective. There's a lot of like demonic type energies in there because of trauma. Of course, the heart being right the target. So what happens is when your chakra of your heart starts activating, or this again can happen through something, bad, like a tragedy, or something positive, like you meet your soulmate or your twin, and energy starts moving beyond these lower 3 chakras and, into more the astral plane. Now, this is just the beginning. This is why when we activate our astral realm, there's a lot of healing that has to take place before we can really activate higher levels. But what happens when we activate a different version of you, because you have many different versions. So let's think about it as you have many other, this is my horrible drawing, by the way. So you have other versions of you existing in the astral plane. This is really, the sun is the stargates. We can think about all the different fractals like planets. We have a lot of karma or different versions of ourselves that are operating separate from us because of what I call a wormhole through time and space. So this essentially, this part of you is at a different angle. It's you know, we are aligned vertically. This is why we stand up and we walk and we're tall, right? We are not crawling around on all fours because we exist primarily vertically as well as on the horizontal planes. But that's what the 3D is, right? The vertical, the horizontal, and the diagonal. Now, these 4-dimensional aspects of ourselves are existing fractaled out separate from us. And when we start activating this actual version of you that's playing out, so again, the astral plane has many issues. So a lot of times the astral selves will be actually playing out trauma. They will be in a loop. And so they can't actually come back into alignment, which let's say this is your alignment with source, right? We have, by the way, we have way more than 7 chakras, but the point of this video is just to understand that it takes time to activate higher and higher and higher chakras. And this is really more detailed or sensitive, you know, more subtle forces. So the higher the chakra goes, or the higher that you activate, the higher chakra, these are like adding new petals to a flower, right? You will have basic, you know, let's say just a few petals on a basic flower with the lower ones. But every time we add, these petals are really other versions of ourselves playing out in different coordinates in time space, sometimes existing as actual separate matter, right? They're not made up of the carbon-based matter that we are in this hologram. So when you activate this version of you, you then start downloading. So first you activate, but then you start integrating. We start reversing this separation of this version of ourselves. That's again, the lower levels are going to be essentially playing out more trauma. So you start activating this, let's say, shadow side of yourself. And a lot of times this will actually, right, we'll experience this in our actual reality. We will start acting differently, right? We will have this monster that comes up within us that just rages, right? Or that is constantly trying to sabotage us, or right? It's a version of us that we have suppressed. So when you start thinking that you have gone bipolar, know that you are activating these astral aspects of yourself. That is literally what bipolar is. It's you are activating this repressed emotional part of yourself that is really this version of you that's playing out a certain loop over and over again, and it can't unwind that consciousness and download it back into the center. So what happens is we then start getting the point where we, where we act different and we scare ourselves. We can be really scared of, wow, like I have this dark part of me and I don't like it. But that's the whole point, is that's a shadow aspect that you activate. You start, right? This can start playing out in your life. And the whole point is you heal. So coming into balance is always the point of balance, right? This vertical is always the 0 point where you are balancing the feminine and masculine sides of yourself. So you don't activate a chakra until you come into balance. So what happens typically is we do some healing. And then this alternate version of you can come back into center, the 0 point. Now what happens is you get back that piece of your soul, that other version of you that really has been running amok in your life unconsciously. And you can bring it back into alignment, and you get back the gifts, the strengths of that piece of you, right? Maybe all of a sudden you start opening up your heart because your heart was closed, literally walled off, which of course most of us have that issue, right? Before we start activating. And when we get back this peace, we can then get back a piece of our light, of our soul. Especially these ones, right? The 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensions, also the heart, throat, and the pineal gland. Those those together, just like the 3rd dimension, is combined of these 3 chakras. These 3 chakras is our soul matrix. So what I mean by this is when we do a bunch of healing, so again, we have infinite numbers of traumas or these wounded aspects of ourselves, these shadow aspects, but we also have parallel versions of ourselves that would be, let's say, future or galactic versions of ourselves, or angelic, guardian versions, right? So the higher you go, we activate higher and higher and higher chakras. These are like having millions of petals, right? There's many different, so we don't just have one parallel self existing in, say the astral or the 5th dimension. We have many. And the more that you can locate these coordinates in time space, and again, astral projection is not what I ever recommend, because unless you're doing soul retrieval, unless there's a purpose why you are going through the astral realm looking for a piece of your lost soul, what happens is you can get into these spaces, especially the darker spaces, with a lot of collective, let's just say, entities. Or, right, an entity is really just, so it's a thought form that ends up becoming larger and larger until it ends up becoming like an entity, like it's an actual conscious thought form. And most people's thoughts are very negative. So that's why a lot of these traumatized aspects or traumatized spirits or parts of us can exist in these darker spaces. So this is why we want to only try to locate our own soul aspects and download them back into alignment by healing them. So it's always, so your chakras always have to be, sorry, this is, I'm trying to draw sideways, that's supposed to be a straight line. It's always about the right and left side, the feminine and masculine side merging together. That opens up, flowering into a higher chakra. So what happens is you activate more and more and more and more of these higher chakras. And you start removing the veil or the membrane between the chakras. Because what happens is when they are closed, they're actually acting out of yourself. These chakras are actually moving front to back. So they're not, right, they're all separate. All these chakras, let's say, almost like you can picture like a spiral coming out this way, they're all separate. When you start healing and activating all of these chakras plus the 8th dimension, 9, 10, 11, 12, and beyond, you integrate so many more microscopic balances in your body, in your energy centers, that you start removing the membrane between all the chakras. They actually align vertically. And you start connecting all of your aspects of self, all of your parallel versions of you. And you start activating all of them and become essentially a pillar of light. So you start becoming a MERKABA field, spinning. So this is how we then start downloading God's source energy more and more and more into the physical. And this is the whole process of ascension and how we are helping to activate this entire planet and solar system and Milky Way galaxy and beyond. So now when we do some healing on our heart, right, what would typically happen is we then our energy can start activating even higher levels. So the 5th dimension, we can say that is our Palladian aspects. Now it's not you existing on the Pleiades as one being. It's actually you start activating many different versions of yourself that are really the matrix, the mind matrix, the consciousness of the Palladian star system, which involves many different stars. Now Alcyon is actually, so you put Alcyon together with our sun and our entire solar system and Earth, put all that together, that's our 5th dimensional Earth, because really we fell. Our sun was originally one of the Palladian stars. That's for other videos. Subscribe to the channel for a lot more. So, but when we start activating, right, so our energy can start moving beyond the heart and into the throat. This is where we can then start speaking our truth and essentially manifesting our truth, right? So what'll happen is you have many other parallel versions of yourself, all existing, right, in time space, that again are like separate from you, because it's kind of like a wormhole separate from you. When you unwind these parts by getting your frequency up, doing your healing, allowing yourself to open up to new flowering dimensions, because that's what the chakras are, remember. They're manifestations of you existing in other coordinates in time space. So they're manifesting other reality fields that you can then embody, right? Because pieces of you exist in all of these higher dimensions. As we come down into physicality, into the 3D, we leave a piece of our consciousness in many different places in time space, in the universal time spiral. And that's how we then put all the pieces of ourselves back together to ascend, to become enlightened, right? To move our entire consciousness beyond this entire 12-dimensional, or we can say 15-dimensional time spiral. Because beyond the 12 dimensions, there's no more dimensionality. So your Palladian aspects, let's say, are existing, again, separate from you. So what happens is you start activating your throat chakra, and the other manifestations of you existing, you know, via this throat chakra in time space, right? And this is kind of how it is. So these are like the different star patterns of each chakra. So this would be, you would start activating many different versions of yourself and embodying them, right? So we activate, we reach this part of ourselves, and then we start, right, things start getting weird, because again, you were activating another parallel version of yourself existing in time space. So when you start activating that, that's where you can then start developing your psychic abilities or your manifestation abilities. You start changing on the spiritual level. It's only until you start downloading this consciousness. So first we activate. The problem is a lot of people stop there, right? They channel the Palladians, for example, and they don't realize that you need to download, undo that separation into the center. You start downloading these different versions of yourself, and you're balancing again, balancing this chakra now. That's supposed to be a straight line, by the way. And so what happens is it opens up yet another portal in the center, and you can flower and activate even higher levels. So it never ends with just, right, I'm a Palladian starseed and I'm channeling Palladians and that's it. You know, the spiritual path, the spiritual journey is a journey. It's not a destination. So you're never just done because you've activated a specific aspect of yourself, right? We're never just Palladian. You are Syrian, right? And also we can activate our Arcturian selves, our angelic selves. It goes on and on and on. All these different galactics that you hear people talking about, these are related to different manifestations that are existing via your chakras, which are really your doorway for higher stargates, which are aspects of yourself existing in other coordinates in time space. So you start downloading all these different, you know, so that just vertical, all these different coordinates in time space. You start pulling consciousness of yourself that was separate, and you download that into the physicality. You spiritualize the physical. And right, we never stop. This is why I'm so adamant about expansion, next level, right? So we have to activate, then we have to download, which means that's the integration, that's the healing, right? So the activation could be the high, the trippiness, the oh my God, you know, who am I? Because you could feel like that during this time. You could feel, it can be scary, because you could feel like you become an alien, or you don't even recognize who you are. You have all these strong emotions that before you never did. You might be feeling lots of different thoughts, or like seeing different scenes from these different versions of you existing, right, that have different realities. Now the lower ones, when we are clearing a lot of these lower ones, these are going to be more our past lives. They're connected to trauma in the earth plane, let's say, and the elemental planes and things like that. So what happens is, when people always talk about, you know, they remember their past lives, they're really only remembering and activating the lower chakras. And of course they have a knowing about it, so they're activating a bit of the higher ones, but they're not merging them all to become a stargate, a MERKABA field. Because again, right, we want to erase all of this, the membranes. Because remember, we want to activate all these different parts of ourselves and integrate them into the whole. So again, that's when we start becoming the center of the creation, right? The unified field. So when we activate even higher and higher and higher levels, it always is about going into the center, right? Embodying, living from that new aspect, or many aspects, many alternate versions of ourselves, right? Integrating them, getting to know them, where they feel safe to fully merge with us. Because this is you, right? It's not some separate entity. Okay, these are versions of yourself that will take time. It's kind of like a lost friend that you ignored for eons, right? It's going to take some time to have them warm up to you, let's say. So you have to almost like prove that you're going to live from the new consciousness levels that you are activating. So, right, you're going to have your heart open more often. You are going to do more of your trauma and your shadow work. With your throat, that would be you were going to speak your truth. You're going to practice manifestation, right? Speaking your reality that you want. Things like that. When we have our pineal, and this is our activation of our angelic self, but also our Syrian versions. And that's going to involve, you need to be able to have that clear vision, right? So indigos are actually born with the pineal gland wide open. This is why we have that indigo aura. And this can change, of course, because we are essentially embodying the whole crystal self and diamond self, right? It ends up becoming the whole rainbow and the whole white spectrum of all the colors. So again, we have way more than just 7 chakras. The crown is really our opening when we open up, right? And we start becoming a stargate, pulling down other versions of ourselves and anchoring them right through the body. So it never ends at the 7 chakras. We have really way more than 12, but 12 is a good way to kind of understand things. But these, so for example, the 8th chakra, people will say, oh, it's above the head. You know, it's a pink one above the head. But what'll happen is when you start activating, right, when you get beyond the crown, you can start activating into this level. You actually start pulling it down, and it actually moves right around here to the higher heart. So you start downloading, and all this happens because you're healing. You're healing these separated aspects of yourself, bringing them into the center. And then you're able to get into a new creation, right? Pull in higher levels. So this 8th dimension, which is really also the center of the Milky Way galaxy, the galactic center, also I'm connected with Orion and that star system, which has many issues, by the way. But that's why when we heal that collective karma, we can start downloading that into our physical, right? Because they're never up there. We exist separate from these higher versions of ourselves. Now, these higher ones are also going to be future versions of yourself. So you are literally expanding to activate future versions, bringing them into the now moment so you can live as your future self. You become a permanent force field or permanent flow. You are fully connected to source, and you're existing from that, not just talking about it, reading about it, existing from it. That's the key, right? If you don't actually clear all these karma and be in exactly that center point where we can open up and flower new versions of ourselves and find them in time space. Because the whole point is you are becoming super magnetic and super electric. The whole point is you bring all these, by you start spinning with your MERKABA field, which is essentially, you can think about it as, right, the two triangles or pyramids, right? When we start activating all these higher levels, they start bringing everything into you. You become the singularity of the whole creation, of the whole unified field of 15 dimensions with 12 dimensionalized fields, plus the higher levels, which are not ever stuck in a specific dimension, but which are everywhere. It's kind of like the fabric of the quantum that the lower dimensions create themselves with, manifest with. So you start being able to undo, right? Because we have many other, that's supposed to be a person, right? We have millions of these other aspects that are our future versions, that have a lot of knowing, right? They might have karma also associated with them, because again, a lot of us have collective karma. We've been in these Star Wars scenarios. We've been in these ancient times where horrible things happened, right? And we might have went there to help and got ourselves connected with a lot of karma. So we have to heal. This is why the higher the dimensions, the more collective the karma is that we have to then heal, right? Because we become collective beings. Essentially, you become trusted when you open up these gateways, right? This is essentially an embodying gatekeeper, right? So again, it doesn't just happen when we open up, 7 or 8 chakras. We need to embody the full spectrum of 12 dimensions on our particleized universe, but also parallel versions of reality can also be your exact twin in the anti-particle realms. That's where it gets even weirder. But I'll talk about that next time on my video about twin flames, what they really are, with some diagrams. But yeah, just know that we have many different chakras. These are different manifestations of you existing in different coordinates in time space. And only when you get your frequency up, do your polarity integration, do you then become, right, that gatekeeper. You don't have to be stuck in only specific bandwidths of frequency. And this is what happens, right? If you ever see my sun code videos, you'll see, right, we embody so many different versions that our creation, our star pattern is just like a million different, right? We are pulling from so many coordinates in time space. It becomes really, we become spherical consciousness. So first it becomes, right, it's all about becoming the pillar of light. But you're pulling from so many different coordinates, you become spherical. This is how we end up having the 360-degree knowledge or activation, right? We are downloading straight from source because we literally become source. We become the sphere. We become the antiparticle, the particle, the 0 point of the integration of both of those and beyond. So your parallel selves could be future versions of yourself. They could be really, as far as the 3D self, they could also be past lives that you need to bring together. It's only when you bring all 12 of those, let's say, past lives, can you then go through the center. The 13th is the center of that spiral or that sphere. You can then flower into the higher levels. And the higher the levels, the more collective karma that we are working on. So it never ends with your own individual or past life or ancestry karma. We have many things to heal. So you could be feeling really strange as you open up these different versions of yourself until you fully integrate them. You could be feeling like there's multiple versions of you. You can be having weird visions of different time periods, different star systems. It gets weird, right? It can be scary too, right? Because we have all this memory. When you download a different version of yourself, you get with that information, knowledge, memory of all the things that are connected to that point in time space, right? It doesn't just close up. It becomes a permanent part of your life right now. So this is how we become superhuman, enlightened, right? It's literally activating other parallel versions of ourselves existing right now. Because again, all of this creation, remember, time doesn't exist. And when we think about time, right, we are having one moment to the next. We are kind of like a time spiral, right? But if you zoom out, you have, right, all these other versions of yourself existing in other, you know, moment by moment timelines. So say this one's this way, this one's this way, this one's this way, right? And eventually you start downloading those all into you at the exact center of them all. And you get to become the whole creation. So that's why when you zoom out and you realize, right, we are literally a huge geometrical spiral star pattern, right? Grid connected to everything. We are the light grid. And that's what we're anchoring by you being on this planet. We are anchoring future versions that haven't been distorted, that haven't been corrupted. So we can anchor them into the, right? Because we're pulling all this energy down into the ground. Then others, right? When we can embody these higher aspects of ourselves, we are walking around as a portal, a stargate. Other people are getting activated wherever you are. We're also downloading straight into the core, crystal core of the planet. And that will dissipate, or sorry, that will, those codes, where the instruction sets for your DNA, that information will be transported all around the planet through the crystalline grid of the planet as well. All the ley lines and sacred sites, axiotonal lines. So that's how important you are. We download our future versions by healing ourselves. And we can then activate the whole planet, and everyone else can have access to start opening up and flowering to receive their own parallel realities, alternate versions of self, and much more. And this is how we heal and up-level the entire creation to a higher expression, to a future version of Earth that's going to be the golden era versus where Earth was actually headed, which was not going to be a good future. This is why we came literally from the future. And we found this point in time space when the beginning of the major corruption that we couldn't essentially undo started. So this is why you are here. That's how important you are. So I hope I earned a thumbs up. Don't forget to share the video on all your social media platforms. You can find me also on Twitter and TikTok, Instagram, and I'm now posting on Facebook, my page. So not the group, but the page. You can find me there. And I have courses on my website. Also join us on my website, a full social media platform with thousands of amazing people just like you all around the world that are really wanting to activate and step into their soul mission so we can recreate a brand new reality for everyone. So come join us. It's free on my website. And subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell because I have many mind-blowing videos coming up as well. And I got my board here to give you guys a bit more visuals. So thank you so much. I'm Roxanne. This has been EARTH1111. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.